The night was restless in the hospital where Laura worked. As a pediatrician, she moved with the confidence of someone who knew every corridor by heart. Despite the chaos around her, she found peace in seeing children heal. But behind her smile, there was always a subtle melancholy. That hidden pain dated back to a surgery she had undergone as a teenager. A benign tumor in her uterus had forced doctors to remove it, leaving her unable to have children. Laura and her husband Davide had considered adoption, a path not without obstacles, but full of hope. Before continuing, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell. That evening, after an exhausting day at the hospital, Laura returned home where Davide was waiting for her. The lights were dim, dinner was almost ready, and the apartment had a warm, welcoming atmosphere. "How was your day?" he asked as he took off her coat. "Tiring, but every smile is worth the sacrifice," Laura replied, sketching a tired smile. "And you, ready for tomorrow?" Davide nodded, trying to hide his agitation. The next day would be very special. They would finally meet the child they hoped to adopt. The next morning, they woke up earlier than usual, excitement vibrating in the air. During breakfast, Davide told a dream. "Last night I dreamed of our son. He had dark hair and lively eyes." Laura smiled sweetly, even though she knew that reality could be different. They arrived at the orphanage, greeted by the director, a kind, middle-aged woman. They signed a series of documents and listened attentively to each step of the adoption process. Laura's heart was beating wildly. She felt the anticipation growing inside her. When the door finally opened, a young nurse entered with a baby in her arms. He was small, dark curls framing his face, and curious eyes surveying the room. Laura held her breath. He was identical to Davide's description. Wordlessly, he took the child in his arms. A small gesture, a hand reaching out to his face, was enough to create a deep and instant bond. Laura felt tears in her eyes as she held what was now their son, Philip. They returned home, where everything was ready to welcome him. The day passed in an atmosphere of peace, with little Filippo sleeping peacefully in his new crib. Laura, sitting next to him, felt her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. In the following months, Laura and Davide's life was filled with new challenges, but also with unexpected happiness. Filippo grew up quickly, filling the house with laughter and energy. Each of his smiles, each of his discoveries was a precious gift for them. But despite the happiness that Filippo brought, Laura often found herself struggling with her demanding job. The long hours in the hospital, dedicated to saving other lives, made her miss time with her baby. As a pediatrician, she had dedicated years of her life to treating children, finding comfort in their smiles and in their healings. But that evening, something in her had changed. Since she and Davide had adopted Filippo, her heart seemed to beat only for him. One evening, after a particularly tiring day, Laura received a call from the hospital. She had to return for an emergency. She felt a weight on her heart, knowing that she would lose another evening with Filippo. But her duty as a doctor left her no choice. By the time she left the hospital, she was exhausted. The city was waking up, the shop shutters were clanking up, and the smell of fresh bread was filling the air. The first rays of the sun were illuminating the streets, while passers-by were starting to populate the sidewalks, some with coffee in hand, others busy getting ready for a new day. Laura walked slowly, feeling the world around her come to life again, but with her heart still heavy from the night before. She entered the house, but the apartment was strangely silent. Usually, Filippo was always there, with his laughter and his small, wobbly steps. But that morning there was no noise. "Davide," she called as she took off her coat and headed for the baby's room. The crib was empty. Davide didn't answer her repeated calls. Panic began to grow inside her, a cold terror that paralyzed her. Where could they be? She said to herself. After minutes that seemed like hours, Davide came home. Lara, relieved to see him, immediately asked for Filippo. Davide entered, with some shopping bags in his hands and a calm expression. Lara turned to him, her face still pale with fear. "Where? Where is Filippo?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Oh, don't worry, I left him at the neighbor's. I noticed that there was no more milk and I left him there to do some shopping. He was still asleep. I hated to wake him." Davide said without realizing the anxiety that had overwhelmed her in those few minutes. Lara took a moment to catch her breath, but she felt a pang deep inside her. The thought of not finding Filippo, even for a few minutes, had made her realize how essential he had become to her life. She couldn't bear the thought of being separated from him, even for a few hours. After taking Filippo from the neighbor and holding him close, Lara sat on the couch, her gaze lost in space. Davide, noticing her state of mind, came over and sat down next to her. "What's up, love?" "I don't want to feel this way anymore," Lara replied, gently stroking Filippo's head as he slept in her arms. "I can't let work take me away from him. Every minute away from Filippo seems like a waste. And tonight I realized I can't go on like this." Davide looked at her for a moment, recognizing the sincerity in her words. He knew how much she loved her job, how dedicated she was to her little patients. But he also knew how much she wanted to be a present mother, now more than ever. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. Lara nodded. "I want to be here for him, to watch him grow. I can't let work take away this precious time from me anymore. Filippo needs me, and I need him." The next day, Lara made the difficult decision to resign from the hospital. It was a painful decision, but she knew in her heart that it was the right thing to do. She had spent years caring for others, but now she had to dedicate herself to Philip, to being the mother she wanted to be. From that moment on, her life changed radically. The days were filled with Filippo's laughter and discoveries. Every step, every new word was a small miracle that she could experience firsthand. And even though she sometimes missed her profession, she didn't regret the choice she had made. Life had taken a new direction, more intimate, simpler, but deeply fulfilling. Lara had finally found her balance, a love without compromise for her child and for the family she had always dreamed of having. Did you like this story? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching the video till the end, and see you next story.